Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and Mike's just given me the thumb. Better than the
Yes.
finger, I guess. And that means that we're live on the air, and here's Mike. That was your thumb, wasn't it?
Yes. I guess bring back the bank. I don't know. Perhaps we can write a letter or something. And
Bring back the bink.
Dale needs the bank. Bring back the
Yes,
bank.
I missed that bink, as a matter of
Yeah.
fact. Where's my binky? Okay, so as has been happening for the last year and a half, we're playing back
Yes.
candidates that were at that Friday meeting that Mike was running. And tonight we have with us Bill Hunker. So here's Bill Hunker for almost 8 minutes. Bill?
Good evening. Bill Hunker, Merlin, Oregon. I like that we have so many people running because it shows that there's a growing interest. For whatever reason, a whole lot of people have decided to step up. I'm one of them. I give you just a very brief background. I'm an Oregonian for 34 years. I moved to Josephine County 8 years ago. And I had, my career was 26 years as a television producer. I was mostly a freelance producer, and I had a nationally syndicated program at one point. I worked 7 years for Trident Missile Guidance with their quality awareness program, again in television. And I had top security clearance there with 120 contractors with Trident Missile Guidance. Then I did a very strange thing and moved very sideways and upper left or upper right, whichever you say, and went over and joined Wholesome and Hearty Foods. Most of you don't know that, but you might heard of Gardenburger. It was a very fast-growing company at the time. I became COO, took the company public. It became the fastest-growing stock in 1993. And then I took some time off, but did go back as a consultant for a real estate development company in Maui. And I worked primarily structuring financial packages with venture capital organizations. So that's a little bit of background. None of that background is necessarily why I'm here today. Several years ago when the nuisance ordinances came up, I decided to pay attention when the vote came in at 80-20. And it surprised me. I was naive enough to believe that our officials were watching after and taking care of and representing us. And I was a little bit stunned. And out of that stunned position, I decided to put my name in the hat to recall Cheryl Walker. So I was the chief petitioner on that. We did get the signatures. Cheryl Walker was voted in by 62 signatures, and she was not taken out by 75 signatures of people who voted. But I learned a lot, and I crossed the county from one end to the other talking with people, with getting signatures, and began to realize what some of the issues were. The three issues continue today as they did 2 years ago, and that's economic growth, having living wage job ability in this county. It's public safety. We've all, I think every one of us has spoken about public safety, and that means funding for the sheriff in particular, in this particular case, because we have two entities really that work on our public safety, and that is the city and the county. And the last one's taxes. Taxes are pretty easy, because if you can't hear or see, would be the only reason you don't know where the people stand on taxes in the county. They are, they've been up to bat 10 times since '98, and 4 times in a row the last 4 years. If you weren't aware, they spent $118,000 trying to get the levy passed in 15. The anti-levy people spent $18,000, 100,000 less. And we gained 2 more points for having that levy go down. Why did we want that levy to go down? It was because the people had lost trust. It wasn't because they didn't want public safety. No one's going to raise their hand, and I include myself in that, to say we don't want public safety. I want to be very clear, because I've been quoted several times over statistics that I got personally interested in just to have facts. I'm from a business background, and when you make decisions on anecdotal information, you can get way off base. You better go to facts, you better have them all lined up, and then you can make policy out of good, sound reasoning. So I went to the Oregon State Police and I went back 20 years and pulled out everything I could find about the county. I put it in a form where most people can understand it in graphs. But I also got painted with a brush at the time that I was against public safety, or that I didn't like the sheriff or want him to have more deputies. That is absolutely untrue. With several of us, after the levy went down, someone mentioned, nobody showed up of all the people who were going for the levy to try and get the sheriff the money that was available. Several of us stood up and said, let's give money where we have money, and you've heard the various stories tonight of where money is available and has not been given. In business, you don't use the word crisis unless it's true, and then you try to solve it because it's a crisis. We don't have a crisis here in Josephine County in crime. We do have an uptick in crime and property crimes, which is directly attributable in many respects to the fact that we don't have jobs.
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, boy, that went fast.
Yes. Any questions for Bill?
I see one person coming.
Bill, I'm enjoying this so much that if you had one more thing to say, what would it be?
Wow, how much you paying her, Bill?
We're gonna have to stay away from each other the rest of the time. I think the bottom line, and I thank the Courier for this particular line today. I did say it to them, but I thank them for it, and that is, we all have to live within our means. Okay, that's you, that's I, that's every one of us, because in 2008, we all took a hit in the county. The county government didn't take the hit. They have to live within their means also. And as we go down, that has to be reflected.
Okay, Vivian has a question.
Hi, Bill.
Each time, yes.
Every time, yes. I want to know the same question that I asked everyone else about economic development. Were you aware that the county is now going to discuss, or our esteemed county commissioners are going to discuss hiring an economic development officer? And how do you feel about that? And how do you feel about having just someone with their finger on the budget that says, well, this isn't in the budget, so no, we can't spend it. And only if it's an emergency, that's different. And then we have, what are those funds called that they stack away in reserve funds? Yes, for emergencies. So the question is, how do you feel about an economic development officer? And how do you feel about having somebody with their finger on the budget that does that?
We're the only county in Oregon that doesn't have an economic development person on looking into economic development. I think that's one of the reasons. But what I don't like that I'm hearing, and this may be rumor because it's such a new topic, is that there's talk about splitting this with the city. That is not, coordination with the city is terrific. Splitting a person salary-wise with two entities, you're just asking to rip them apart loyalty-wise, how they have to vote every week, every month. So that wouldn't work in my estimation at all. Coordination, absolutely.
Excellent, thanks. Bill Hunker.
Well, yesterday's meeting of LPSCC, you've all heard about it. Here's the cover picture in the Courier of the idea. This is Dwayne Stark right here. In the background, you see Bill Ertl, who would not sign a document going to the governor saying, we don't want you to come here and take over. There's the two law enforcement officers here locally. There's been some talk. We predicted that what was going to happen is that these guys were going to come in and say, no, we're not going to do that. It wasn't a long-term projection, but they did come in and say, no, we don't think this is a good idea. You can imagine that at today's Thursday admin meeting, there were some pretty angry people among the commissioners. And one of the things Simon Hare said, and we told you about this, is that he said, well, we can come back in November with that advisory question. Remember when we were saying this isn't an advisory question? This is like a vote that they just took foot on. They're calling it an advisory question. It's not an advisory question. It's going to end up being the law. And he said, well, we're going to come back in November. We'll ask the people what we think, and then we'll go to the governor with it.
Well, listen, I mean, if you're going to do that, why not put it on the ballot and not call it an advisory question? Just say, hey, listen, do we go to the governor or do we not? And then you abide by the people's will.
Because you're not going to get it, because you can say, oh, well, 40% of the people said yes, so that's just as good as 50%. They're going to do it in a sneaky way. It's Simon Hare.
Yeah, they want. See, the thing is, this is getting some pushback, and they didn't want any pushback, and no one wants to take the political hit for the pushback. So this is them backing off. I wouldn't put it past them, especially if somebody gets nixed in the primary here. That they aren't going to push forward with it, because we already know Cheryl's not going back there. And if Keith Heck isn't one of the people going to the runoff in November, I could see him being completely amenable to doing this without consulting the people at all. So,
well, the number one person that's pushing and pushing and pushing and getting fanatical, you'll see what I mean in a moment. You just listen to Mayor Darren Fowler and what he had to say yesterday about when is it going to be that people are roaming the streets with AK-47s. You might think I'm making that up. Watch this.
If we do nothing, which it looks like that's what we're getting from our leadership at the county. If the citizen group doesn't come up with something, we're going to be in this position. And we're going to be looking to you for help from our state, and you'll probably tell us no again. I get it. I totally get it. But we don't know who to ask and how to get out of this problem, because as a city, we're doing our best. But our best will not even be close to good enough next spring, as articulated. So, I'm trying to do my best to keep this on the front page, to keep it on your desk, to keep it on everybody's mind, and to get the word out to those people who vote for commissioner and vote for levies and vote for services, that there's a day coming that is unlike any other.
Judgment Day?
Legalizing marijuana, and we got out-of-state license plates running around our county.
Oh my God.
Airplanes landing at night and taking off. All that.
Oh, yeah. Drug cartels.
Is that going to get better if we don't have a jail? Oh, man. How are we going to enforce the basic laws? We're going to have people with, walking their property lines with AKs like they were in the 80s.
Cats and dogs together.
That's unacceptable. And as a city, I get it that the rural resident has a different idea of public safety or of criminal justice. But I don't know how many times I can say it. We're in trouble as a city unless the county does something at whole. And so being held hostage in one view by that rural resident that is keeping us from getting the services we need to get to our city.
Oh, death penalty for rural residency. That's what I say. That solve all your problems.
This is Darren Fowler.
I'm amazed at this guy. I don't know what he's smoking, but it is some powerful stuff. They're still going to have fully funded cops running around all over town. What is he talking about? And already we don't have any cop presence out in the county. So what the hell is he talking about? This guy's out of his mind.
They have 50 law enforcement officers in Grants Pass alone. And this guy sees a time when people are patrolling their homes with AK-47s. He said that the county residents are holding him and the residents of Grants Pass hostage.
Is he trying to start a civil war or something?
Yes.
Crying out loud. This guy.
He just said he wants to keep it on the front page of the Courier. He wants people out there who do vote for levies to keep going, keep going, keep going.
This guy's drinking his own Kool-Aid. I mean, well, I mean, he has shown some of this in the past. I think he wants to be the guy who carried the flag, so he's engaging in a bit of hyperbole here. I can't imagine, I mean, does he really believe this? I mean, that's what I have to know at this point, because it almost looks like he does actually believe this stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Maybe this guy has never lived outside the city limits and knows what it's like. And listen, I have always lived quite rurally, where it's going to take a long time for anybody to get to me, and I don't fear it at all. I'm not fending off criminals on a daily basis. This doesn't happen. We're a good neighborhood, and we look out after one another, and everybody around here has a gun in their house, and people who might think of doing bad things around here all know about that. So I don't think the guy having an AK-47 at his house is a bad thing. This guy thinks that, people patrolling their houses with AK-47s with a fully staffed police force, that is just utter ludicrous hysteria.
That's what it is. It's hysteria, like that official said in Cave Junction.
Mm.
It's a war zone. It's a war zone. Do you know what a war zone? Obviously, he doesn't know what a war zone looks like. It's a war zone.
That's just silliness.
Well, hyperbole is right. Okay, so we're going to do something that we don't usually do on this show. We're just going to let people talk, and not just me and Mike. But here are the three representatives. Buddy, I did the best job I could on the audio. They're sitting like, it seems like a football field away from me. There's air conditioning in there. I'm giving you the best audio that I can. I'm hoping that you'll be able to hear what everybody has to say. Here we go. It's going to start with Carl Wilson.
It's been my privilege to live here since 1957. So I've had an opportunity to see this community for almost 60 years, good times and bad times. I don't think anything's happened that has escaped my sight, except for the 2 years I was, year and a half I was in the Philippines, just prior to martial law in '72, and that was a law enforcement emergency. It required martial law. So I've seen what a law enforcement emergency looks like. I want to talk to you about this bill. The reason I'm here today is because of this House Bill 3453 enrolled, which later became ORS 753. This is not the answer. I can tell you unequivocally that this is not the answer. There is one person missing here, and that's John Q. taxpayer. The taxpayer is not asked to do anything. They're told.
Amen, brother.
And that I find is a real problem.
That's their goal.
When I look at this bill, I really have a hard time believing that this bill was put together in seriousness. Because when you look at this bill, in fact, we could probably short this whole meeting today by just reading the bill. Because as we read along and you see the bill, you would say, I would never sign on to that. I would never be for that. I can tell you as a business person, I would never sign a contract that has this kind of ambiguity. This is absolutely loaded with ambiguity. And you cannot do this to your taxpayers. You cannot do this to your citizens. When you take
really?
At the various provisions here, this creates a governmental entity, intergovernmental entity. I was quoted in the paper as calling it a Frankenstein, but that's exactly what you're looking at.
Wally Hicks is one of the creators.
By trying to invoke the legislature to enact on this law on behalf of this community, you would be asking this community, you would be telling this community what to do and how much to pay. Because obviously there are 4 or 5 taxation mechanisms in this bill. It's not just one, it's several. It can get you either from the right or from the left. And I don't think you want to go there because, number one, the money is not going to come in time. Even if this bill were enacted from the timetable that is prescribed here, the money is not going to come for quite some time. In fact, the intergovernmental entity, this new entity, whatever it is vested with powers that it doesn't have because currently it doesn't exist. We can't know what those powers will be that are vested in this new intergovernmental entity.
Fantastic point.
When you look at all the things that have to be negotiated out in this between the governor and, I presume, the county commission, this would take months. This would take years to do it correctly.
Purposely vague.
You could just
Yeah.
take your time, you read through the bill, and you look at all of these things, and you just say to yourself, you know, maybe the intentions were good, but this just can't work. It's got to come ultimately from the people. You know, and I don't know what the other guys would say today, but I think ultimately every community is given the ability to determine what kind of community it wants to be. And when you have government telling a community what it should be, then I go off the rails with that.
Wow.
That's not where I am. And so the issue is here that this community ultimately has to live by the will of the people and what the people are willing to pay for. They've got to perceive the need. If things keep going like they are, I expect they'll probably perceive the need, but they haven't up to this point.
Wow.
My government, and big government, telling the community what its tax rates ought to be. And what
Hey, Dale, you mind interjecting here for a second?
No problem. Just a moment, sir. Go, bud.
I got to tell you, isn't this a change from I don't want to share my community with these people?
It really is. What a shock from this guy in particular. And Mike's right. That's what this guy said. By the way, just a very interesting note to me. Not a single word about this gathering on KJO. Not a word.
Wow.
Even though it's been on the front page of the Courier, KJO is not going to tell its listeners about what happened yesterday.
Now, I got to tell you, I realize that you have had your differences with Carl Wilson there, but he is speaking sanity to the insane here.
I shook his hand afterwards. You know, okay.
Yeah. And you know what, for him saying, listen, you know, one of these things is self-determination. And the other thing is where you're ramming it down their throat. You know, I mean, we've been saying that, but thank God somebody's saying now, whether or not the commissioners are going to pay any attention to them, that's another story. But I'm thankful for Carl Wilson showing contrast, adult, you know, adolescent here. Yes. I mean, that's the difference between the thinking going on. And you can continue anytime. That's
well, by the way, amazing. Following up on what Mike said, we predicted on this show. We've been doing a lot of this recently, hanging it out there and saying, okay, here's what we think is going to happen. You remember when we said that if the legislators say no, which it looked like they were going to, the first thing that the commissioners are going to say is, because they had said, we want to hand it off to these legislators, and they're going to take it to the governor. They did not say maybe. They said they will take it to the governor. That's our plan. And we predicted on this show 2 days ago that what was going to happen is if the legislators said no, that they were going to say, oh, we never meant to do that. Actually, we don't need them. And that's what they said today.
Okay. Isn't that
we
nice?
Don't need them.
Wonderful.
They're going to get this in any way that we can, and we've proven to you over and over and over again with videotape, they're liars and cheaters. They are liars and cheaters. I mean, there's just no two ways about that. And what do liars and cheaters do? They lie and they cheat. And they, oh, no, we never meant, oh, that's not what we meant. We meant 10 other things. Well, back to Carl Wilson and company, who are telling these people in this room who've already said it's now an emergency, it's going to be an emergency more in the future, we need to have the governor come down here, and these guys are saying, we're not going to do it. This is a non-starter, buddy. Here we go.
I've read this thing 5, 6, 7, 8 times now, and there are a number of ways that people or businesses can be taxed apart from their will. We already have a lot of problems in our relationship with Salem. And if you own a small business, you know that. What this legislature has done in the last months has been almost unconscionable. And so the last thing we need is the final straw, and that is turning into truly a welfare county with our hand out, asking the state to please do something nice to us, because it certainly hasn't been doing anything nice to us lately. And this isn't going to be nice, is my prediction. So I would say, please don't waste your time with this. Don't waste your time putting hopes in ORS 753. It is not a good plan. It really isn't a plan. It exists with the people that we're going to see as we drive out of here today. Those
Amen, brother.
Right, to say what kind of community we're in. I know it's difficult. I say I've been here for 60 years, I've seen it all. But I can tell you, have faith in the people of the community.
Wow.
That they are going to do the right thing. And motivate to do that. I don't want what I say to be construed as not honoring the work that you guys do, because I know it. I've seen it. I've lived it. I've been a reserve deputy. I know what it's like out there. And we sure don't have the staffing levels we have back in the communities. But nonetheless, it's the people. Ours invested, truly vested in. That'd be my answer.
Darren Fowler looks so angry.
Wow.
Mayor Fowler, you're right. Public safety is one of the government should be concentrated on.
Speak up, Herman.
It's either that or education, and it's like this all the time. That's personal. So Judge Baker, you're right, this is serious. I understand that. And I've been monitoring and trying to understand this situation ever since I got elected. Well, before I got elected, but really. This particular bill, I voted no on it simply because of the language. The language, you know, there's 4 people in this room that have served in the legislature. And I think all 4 of us will agree that most of the time, this new type of legislation, we don't get it right the first time. It comes back. So we do the experiment. And the representation of the people in this particular bill is not there. It takes the representation away. And that is very disturbing. So that's why, I mean, if you look at just, you don't even have to read much past the first paragraph where it says, local government granting the governor the power to act on behalf of units of local government. You're giving the governor the power to make your decisions, okay, because you're asking for the money. But let's expand this conversation of public safety a little bit more than just Josephine County. Okay, we're suffering at a state level. Our prisons are full. We're constantly figuring out ways of trying to pay for this. It's costing anywhere from $125 to $150, depends on who you're talking to, per day. And if we look at a nation, then prisons across this country are full. And the sentiment across this country is very disturbing on how people are reacting to law enforcement and to just law and order in general. It's very disturbing. You know, if we were more self-disciplined as a community, we could actually get to the point where we would need a sheriff's department. Now, I know that's probably impossible, but there is a large problem in our country, period. And we're very focused on our small community here in Southern Oregon, and that's okay. But we're just a symptom of a much larger problem across this country. And I do believe, still, I've said it before, on the record, and I'll say it again, I have more confidence in my community than I do in my legislature. I do that, and I sincerely believe that. Are we at a level that I think is appropriate? I don't know, and I've had discussions with the sheriff, is maybe we've looked at this and how much it costs, where maybe we ought to back up and ask the community, what level of service do you want? What are the expectations out of the community? Start there, get a consensus of what level do we want, and then we can put a price tag.
We've already done that.
We went around
Yes, we
the
have.
wrong way. We started with the price tag and then said, this is the level of service we can, Maybe we ought to stop.
No, that's
Maybe we can
backwards.
find some common ground and some consensus in the community, so we just swap that conversation.
Now, I pointed out to her.
I seem to remember that phrase.
That's right. Consensus in the community. I did point out to him, you're the one that said at your own town hall that there was no consensus in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I meant something else. Okay. And we've also heard from Simon Hare, who asked the question, and this is why we need to worry about and be careful about this advisory question, because Simon Hare said, do you feel that you have enough? No, it's not enough. What he should have asked and will never ask is, are you willing to pay for more?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's the obvious question, but you know what? They're looking for a means of justifying their actions, not asking for permission, and that's where they're stuck in the middle. And Herman, he's just too wishy-washy on this sort of thing, and unfortunately, because of that, next time. His position comes up, maybe we could have somebody go in there. It's a little bit more resolute.
Why isn't he sending a letter every day to Washington?
Of course.
Why aren't our commissioners sending a letter every day? Squeaky wheel.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think the reasoning for that is that, in our discussion with Herman last summer, it seems like they keep these legislators busy with a lot of make work stuff, so they don't have time to do any real, work that might actually accomplish something. So I like Carl Wilson's way of putting this a whole lot better. It was certainly a lot stronger. Mr. Bearshiger comes off a little wishy-washy, and yeah.
By the way, Carl Wilson is our state representative. Dwayne Stark, you'll hear next, is a state representative for a small part of Josephine County, and Herman Bearshiger is our state senator. We'll let Herman continue.
I've always, in my discussions over this bills with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, Bill, and I think what will happen, we're not the only problem in the state. Multnomah County's got problems. They got many problems too. There's 36 counties in the state. They all got problems. The state has problems. We're looking at somewhere between $1.5 billion or $2 billion deficit in the next budget.
Wow.
And we're going to be dealing with that in less than a year, Bob. Dwayne? Somewhere around $1.5 billion to $2 billion. So, it's not just Josephine County's in the boat. Everybody in the state of Oregon is in the boat. Maybe you can extrapolate that most of the country. I don't know. So, I would really urge that we try to stimulate that conversation of what level of service. And I understand that the level of service in Grants Pass, the people who live in Grants Pass would probably have a different concept than the people in the county. That's the rural-urban divide that we see across this country. That's just how it is. People that live in urban areas, they like it. They like the services. They like more protection. They like that. And people that live in the rural areas are a little more independent and say they can take care of themselves. I got it. I understand. That's the way. But we need to come to some consensus. So I would like to see us start with that conversation of what level of service. And as we have that, then you folks here, because you've done a lot of good work, can start putting realistic price tags on.
They are not going to do that. They are not going to do it.
I think that would go well. But I'm with Representative Wilson on this one. 3453. It was written fairly quickly. I know Mr. Hicks over there was involved with it. And him and
Yes,
I had
he
some
was.
conversations. And I don't like the language. Maybe Wally can chime in. I don't know if he ever really totally got there on this bill. But I'll tell you what, I'd rather have my local elected officials running this county than the governor of Oregon.
Well, listen, I'll agree with that. Can I comment for a second here, Dale?
Absolutely, of course.
Because he mentioned that we're at the end of this year, we're going to have $1 billion deficit on this year's.
Maybe $1.5 billion. Yeah.
Maybe $1.5 billion. Okay. I submit to you that's chicken feed, because check this out. This is the PERS deficit climbs to $21 billion. Now, in the first couple of sentences here, it says the amount of unfunded liabilities carried by public employees' retirement system has exceeded $21 billion, up from $18 billion last year. That means that just the PERS deficit is going up $3 billion a year, plus this budget thing that they're talking about is $1.5 billion. That's $4.5 billion. Hello, we
when Simon
Hare, this kind of stuff.
When Simon Hare ran for office, he said, "I will not take PERS." It was one of the reasons he got elected. As soon as he hit that 4th year, and once he started his next after the election, and he defeated Mark Gatlin, then he says to the commissioners, the other commissioners, "I would like my PERS now, please, retroactively."
Yeah. Listen, PERS, if it's growing at that type of level, and it's bound to accelerate. I don't know what the PERS deficit was the previous year, but apparently Oregon is the only state in the union where the employer does not contribute, or the employees do not contribute to their own PERS. This is a total gift of the people to them, and so this deficit is going to continue going out of control. They say here, in the county, that we don't have the power to deficit spend. The hell you don't. We're doing it every single year. All of the PERS unfunded liability for the employees in this county rides on the head of this county. Okay, so we are deficit spending every damn year, and if you want to get a handle on this, you got to put a stop to this kind of stuff, because it's unsustainable and it's going to crash and burn. And you think we got problems now? You just wait till the state's, this public employee retirement system, comes down around us. We're going to have to declare bankruptcy. It's the only legitimate option, and discharge this stuff. And I would want to push for legislation where we are not obligated to have public employee unions because of the burden. And listen, this rock that they put around our neck was put around our neck by the unions. So we cannot continue to do that. So the little billion or $1.5 billion, small potatoes. In fact, it's half of what the PERS obligation that is mounting on us that we're not going to know about until all of a sudden, boom, it hits us, because this is just it's growth in debt. And it's no wonder why their deficit is growing, because I would imagine a large chunk of that deficit is interest on the PERS debt.
Yes, sir.
Because you're incurring that debt constantly, and interest has to be paid on it because you're paying it out. That's what a deficit is.
Now, you may think that we've been a little tough on this thing about following our local constitution and what it says, the county charter. The state constitution says you will not go into deficit spending. The state constitution also says you will not have unfunded liabilities. They do both of them all the time. And where are our local people that are protesting against this? They're not going to do so because one of them is asleep, one's a fanatic, and one is got state aspirations.
Right.
Well, it's in your hands. You picked the right two people, and Mike's not running. Dang it. Okay. Now, interesting thing leading into this next guy, Dwayne Stark. You heard the audience applauding. for the last two speakers. I think Carl Wilson really deserved it. Listen to what Diane Hoover, who's head of the health department, what she has to say about people applauding. Here we go.
Remind the audience that public law or public meeting rules do apply, and booing and clapping is generally not considered appropriate.
No.
Oh, shut up.
No, public meeting rules do not say
listen,
that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. That's the only means of gauging the public sentiment in that room.
There's your answer.
Was that applause? Now, so shut the hell up. You know, I mean,
I know the public meeting laws. I know those laws. It is not in the public meeting laws. She's making that up. And I have not been to any other county organizations that advise the commissioners that don't allow people to speak at all who are there as guests, who are there in the audience. They have never, but we're getting to that. Here's Dwayne Stark and what he had. It goes from terrific to pretty good to Dwayne Stark. Here's Dwayne Stark.
Okay.
Guess we're in a series of statements here, I guess.
Guess we are.
So this really hit home for me actually in April when I left my family behind when I went back up to the legislature. And usually they travel with me. It just so happened that we had a problem. And she called the police, she signed a loan, a bunch of children, and 2.5 hours later, the state trooper showed up. And you know, I took some flack about my opinion on the public safety levy last time. I tell you, since then, the dog I've caught, things I've put in, the motion detectors I've put in, the cameras I've put in, and the neighbors that I now know I can call, cost a whole lot more than that levy would cost. But regardless of my own personal vote and thoughts on that, and growing up here as well, I can't get over, even if I could buy into the concept, even if somehow I could get myself to say, Governor, you are now in control of us, exclusively. Even if I could get there, there are so many holes in this bill, so many issues. Not only the intergovernment agency that Rep. Wilson talked about, but you guys, just the basic liability issues with that agency. You know, it took us 4 months of negotiating in order to get some sort of liability protections for the solar center. 4 months. And that was with what, I mean, that's one small itty bitty piece of what this would have to come up with. I've read in the papers that this is supposed to stop after 18 months, but guess what? At the end of 18 months, the government can ask for another 18 months. And there's nothing in here that says you can't keep asking every 18 months for more. And when the people who voted over and over and over, saying, the people being the entire county, saying, let's not do this, not this way. Then we hit a point where, okay, so we're going to force them, we'll impose taxes on them, force them to put it on the ballot, and then tell us again. And so how much time goes by until they're successful in doing that? And we spend all this time and energy as a community working on something that is a short-term fix, if we even manage to pull it off in time, and doesn't get us where we need to be in the world. One of the things, you know, I've had a series of the candidates back there in the last couple of weeks say, hey, can we get a coffee? And one of the things I keep saying I wish that we would do as a community, maybe this is the group to do it, is we hear, there's a handful of people at county commissioner meetings we hear from all the time, right? Right, Dale? There's a handful of people that we hear from all the time. But why don't we do a series of, sorry, let me back up. One more thing before I go. My involvement on this issue began long before I became a rep. My involvement on this issue began because I was someone who was involved in the community. And I had a series of meetings with people over the last several years. And I've heard people put forward some really innovative ideas and some really wacky ideas. But one of the things that we have a tendency to do, and I'm guilty of it as well, is when someone puts forward an idea, oh, that'll never work. You know what I would love to see us do? Is tell people, you know what, in 3 months from now, we're going to have a week's worth of hearings. And between now and then, Every single one of you, I don't care how crazy your idea is, write a 500-word or less essay and submit your idea on how we can deal with this problem.
See, he just doesn't know. I talked to him after this. This set of commissioners had an evening like that. 3.5 hours of nonstop solutions, not complaints, solutions from the public. And you know what the county commissioner said.
Yeah,
None of them, they're all worthless.
Yeah, what he just said. But you know what? Listen, depending on who you're talking to, if you tell somebody how to open a can of soda, you either have a mind that is receptive to that or you don't. And that's perhaps a bad analogy that you could instruct them to do something. But I have analogized it like this, that this particular board of commissioners should do exactly the opposite of what their natural inclination is, because they do every single thing wrong. Everything they do is a monumental screw up. You know, the junk.
80% no vote.
Yeah. Yeah, just crazy stuff. So they should second guess any of this stuff. And unfortunately, it isn't just our board of commissioners. This is an infection that is in the city council. It is in the staff of both the city and the county. We are infected with this, and the only way that you get rid of an infection like that is with a scalpel. And you know, I don't see that happening anytime in the future. The only thing that we can hope for is that we have some strong-willed people that that understand the job that they're going into, and understanding it. Listen, you are about to step into managing a bunch of people who are completely out of control. They've
gathered them around them, haven't they? Over a generation, they've gathered all of the people who don't want you to have any say. They've gathered them around, and that's mostly the only kind of people that are there in the courthouse.
Right. However, I got to call the people out on this one, because you let it happen. You know, what is it? The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. Yeah, well, you've been sleeping, and this is what you got. And you have to rouse these people out one by one, and it's going to be hard, because they're going to put up a fight. And they're going to kick, and they're going to scream, and they're going to whine, and they're going to, you know, other things that you can't say on television.
Everything.
Yeah, they're going to do everything. But bottom line is that's the job that you want, you 15, 16 people who are running. And, you know, so understand that going in.
Well, this election, probably everybody always says this, and I think I remember them saying this a number of other times. This election really is important, because you've seen where it's gotten. It's gotten to the point where people are willing to say anything. Why, it's chaos in the street. People are going to need AK-47s. Really? Oh, it's blood. It's children. It's dogs and cats living together. It's everything bad that you can think of. And we're going to stop asking the people what they think. We're just going to make them do it. All three of these guys have said, would you please talk with the public? Each of them has said that. Now, listen to this, because when they were all done, then somebody in the audience says, well, this time, because last time they didn't allow any public comments. It's unusual at one of these meetings. No public comments. And here's what Diane Hoover, with everybody else sitting there, including Nate Gowrie-Rand, who I think is a good guy, the police chief, the sheriff, not Dan DeYoung wasn't there, but there were other people there. And here's what she had to say about the idea. Now, keep in mind, each one of these guys said, well, where's the public? Well, why aren't you talking to the public? Well, what does the public think about this? Listen to this. This is perfect.
Would you accept public comment this time? We've never accepted public comment.
And there's the core of your problem. They're not going to hear from us. You see? You put your finger on it. There you go. There's your answer. There's ours too.
If I could say something, this is an advisory committee to the commissioners. So let's just keep it that way. We will advise the commissioners. There's plenty of public meetings for the public to talk about.
So why can't we advise the commission?
Right.
Right. That was Stuart Senate. Stuart Senate.
Okay, yes.
Why can't we advise these guys?
Yeah,
and,
right.
And the reason I cut it there is because Diane Hoover then changed the subject and went on to something else entirely. But you saw Darren Fowler's reaction was, oh, ha, 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 like you're going to give advice to the commissioners.
Oh, listen, it's not like they have freewheeling public comment in the city council. You know, they keep a pretty tight check on that stuff too.
I'm going to play that again because I love this little quote. I'm sorry it's cut off at the end, but she goes off into some other kind of thing.
No worries. No, listen. I mean, the people have an obligation. They have, you know, they have a power of advice and consent, just like, you know, I mean, that's what we, the people, is.
That's what these state reps and the state senator were saying to these people. Wait a minute. Where's the public voice in all this? And then at the end, it was so ironic. They see that's the funny thing. It is funny about these local people. They have no sense of irony because here they had just been lectured all that time by these guys for 18 minutes. They had called them in thinking that they were going to carry the banner. And they said, well, where's the voice of the people? Here's what happened to the voice of the people. And watch again, Darren Fowler at the end laughing derisively about the idea that people are going to be allowed to speak. Here we go.
Would you accept public comment this time? We've never accepted public comment.
And there's the core of your problem. They're not going to hear from us. See? You put your finger on it. There you go. There's your answer. There's ours too.
If I could say something, this is an advisory committee to the commissioners. So let's just keep it that way. We will advise the commissioners. There's plenty of public meetings for the public to talk about.
So why can't we advise the commission?
Right.
He just thinks it's hilarious. We've got to get rid of that guy.
We got to listen, you know what? We got to get rid of a lot of these people. I don't know how you get rid of some of these people that are just employees or whatever. But you know what? There's no room for that sort of thinking. You're in public service. Do you understand what that means?
No, they don't.
Not. No, and because I guarantee you that in the minds of every one of those people that has that type of attitude is a superiority situation where they believe that the people are stupid. And we've seen this demonstrated in the city council. They've said it. It's a mutual admiration society on the city council, and they all sit around and yuck it up and commiserate about how stupid the people are. This is the wrong way of thinking. This is the wrong.
That's what it's gotten down to. And it started with bad ideas that were pushed. We expect bad ideas, okay? But they started with bad ideas, and then the people saying what they think, and then they put up more bad ideas, and the people say what they think, and they put up more bad ideas. And then it got to the point where they were getting angry with us, as you've seen at the city council meeting, especially Darren Fowler, okay? Very angry with the people, and then calling the people names and how stupid they are and why, you know, they should do as they're told. And then now it's gotten to the point where they're not going to tolerate a vote. This is what it's down to. This is what's happening in our community. This is what we're telling you. It's gotten to the point where they're not going to put up with a vote anymore. What vote? We don't need a vote.
Well, I ask you, what is dictatorship? What is tyranny? What does it what does it emanate from? You're looking at it here. This is what it emanates from. That is the type of thinking that ultimately leads to off with their heads.
Well, wouldn't it be easier if you didn't have to put up with a stupid thing in America called a free and fair vote? Why would you have a free and fair vote when you can just impose your will on the people by calling down powers from above? I have in mind calling down a different power from above, and you guys who think that Jesus is whispering in your ear, that's not Jesus, my brother. That's the other side that's whispering in your ear. It's okay to cheat. It's okay to lie. Just go ahead and no, you're listening to the wrong advice. That's what's at stake.